A massive offseason for Oklahoma football is underway, and we got a lot to talk about, really come from all angles of the program. We might get into what happened on Saturday. We might get into the actual game, the final regular season game of the year, but it feels like there's more pressing matters at hand right now. When it comes to recruiting right now for OU in the 2025 class, certainly the transfer portal. And the biggest story of them all, who is going to be the next offensive coordinator at the University of Oklahoma? We're kind of in a holding pattern. We're just kind of sitting, waiting to see if it's today, see if it's going to be tomorrow. It feels like it's definitely going to be this week. But, you know, Parker, I think you and I talked multiple times last week and even the week previous. Like, this is nothing new that this was going to be the week that we'd find out the offensive coordinator hire. But at one point, we thought it might be even on Sunday after the LSU game, certainly on Monday, and maybe it'll happen at some point today. But it's 2:10 on Monday afternoon, and I think I would have been surprised a couple of weeks ago if you would have told me that at this point we still don't know, officially who the OC hire is, or maybe who even, they're really targeting and zeroing in on right now for the job.
Yeah, I would have been completely surprised. I would not have believed it if you'd told me at any point throughout this process, yeah, it'll be Monday afternoon, you guys are on the air, and Oklahoma still wouldn't have named an offensive coordinator. I mean, it's wild that we have not gotten an announcement yet, which speaks the reality that this thing is still ongoing, and it's very, very interesting.
Well, I mean, and we can use that as a bit of a hint. Why is that the case? Why do they not have a hire right now when they've known for over a month that they're going to be hiring somebody? Is it – like, if we're going to look into why this is the way that it is right now, is this kind of, with all the rumors around Ben Arbuckle and the Utah job, do we think that OU wants Ben Arbuckle? He is priority number one, but Utah's made this really interesting, and he's kind of weighing his options right now. Like, there's got to be a reason why this is the case. Maybe OU's interviewing other candidates. Maybe they've targeted someone else. I'm kind of wondering, though, if OU has identified Ben Arbuckle as who they want, but they're kind of waiting on him to make a decision because it sounds like Utah's made it pretty interesting now.
Yeah, well, and that's really the only explanation that makes any sense at this point, is if Arbuckle was OU's guy, at least that was the plan, and then all of a sudden at the very tail end, here comes Utah and makes things way more interesting than any of us could have imagined. And look, we've talked about Ben Arbuckle for 2 weeks now as the guy that OU seemed to have in the crosshairs. And so the only reason, Tyler, why this would still be undecided, the only reason why this would still be up in the air on Monday afternoon is if there were another program that were complicating matters as far as OU's signing a contract with Arbuckle for his services as offensive coordinator. And it's really, really interesting to follow this thing from the YouTube, or not from the YouTube side. We're on YouTube. Shout out to our YouTube viewers.
What's up, guys?
It's really, really interesting to track this thing from the Utah side because everybody on that end, Tyler, is convinced that Ben Arbuckle is their guy. Like, if you didn't know any better, if there were nothing happening on the OU side, you would think Ben Arbuckle is going to be the next offensive coordinator at the University of Utah. The way that those people are talking.
Yeah.
There's a reason they feel that way is what I'm saying.
Sure. Yeah. No, I mean, sounds like Ben Arbuckle has options right now, and he's really weighing those options, and maybe his agent is like, hey, you know how it works, right? You're trying to get your client the best possible deal, so maybe that's going on right now, and I've definitely seen some people saying, like, how could Utah beat us out for an offensive coordinator? How's that the case? Now, if I remember correctly, wasn't it this last offseason they named Morgan Scalley the defensive coordinator, head coach in waiting for Kyle Whittingham, I believe?
Correct.
So I wouldn't think that, Ben Arbuckle is being told, like, hey, Whittingham steps down in a year or two, you are the head coach. Like, they made that decision this last offseason.
Yes.
But it kind of sounds like Utah's pitch is, hey, your offense is going to work better with us in the Big 12 than maybe it would in the SEC. Like, it almost feels like there's some negative recruiting going on from Utah as it pertains to Oklahoma. Not like super negative recruiting, just kind of stating their case and saying, hey, here's why our spot is better than that other spot that you may have offered to you in Norman.
Adam from ATX says, if he's deciding between freaking Utah and OU, then he isn't our dude. Why would you even think about that unless he may have religious reasons? No, Adam. Like, here's the thing. Here's Utah's pitch. Obviously, they're willing to pay good money for a new OC. That's a factor. But it's also the reality that his offense is not your typical, not your traditional SEC offense. It is much more commensurate with the style of offense that has proliferated and succeeded in the Big 12. And so Utah's pitch is, from everything I know talking to people on the Utah side, hey, come here because what you do and your scheme and everything that you're trying to implement offensively is going to work far better in this conference than in the SEC.
Sure. 913 is the candidate in the playoffs. Well, who do we think realistically right now are the main headline candidates for this job? Is it easy to say that it is Ben Arbuckle, in no particular order, of course, Ben Arbuckle, Joe Craddock, and Buster Faulkner? Are we comfortable saying those are the three most likely candidates at this point?
I would be comfortable saying that,
okay.
Yes.
Then no. No is the answer to that
well,
question.
Here's the asterisk. Here's the asterisk that has always been there, but that I feel the need to restate. Sometimes, as in recruiting, coaching searches and coaching hires can throw you a complete curveball. And I don't think that's what's going to happen here, but you can never 100% rule it out. There's no better example than what you just saw on Saturday with Florida State hiring Gus Malzahn out of nowhere. And he steps down from UCF as the head coach, and he's the next offensive coordinator at Florida State. If you go big game hunting, you may just come back with the prize. That's what Florida State did. And that was a shock to everybody in Tallahassee. None of the Florida State beat reporters, none of the people that are very, very close to that program had any idea that was on the radar. And then, boom, all of a sudden, Gus Malzahn's the dude. So, who knows, man? Maybe, and I said this half-jokingly, well, a lot more than half-jokingly, but it's like, wait, what if Mike Gundy's your next offensive coordinator? And it could be something just completely random at the end of all of this, which, shoot, man, would be par for the course for what's been a really weird year in OU athletics.
It'd be entertaining, if nothing else, right? If that was the next hire at offensive coordinator. Man, it'd be a fun and interesting offseason. No doubt about that. It will be already, though. Kyle in Broken Bow says, why don't you guys quit with all the nonsense talk and just bring on the plane tracker guy?
The plane tracker guy.
I like that. The Thinker says, so there's a chance for Heartline. Heck yes, with about 5 laughing emojis right there. Yeah, Brian Hartline probably upset that they didn't throw more to his wide receivers on Saturday in Columbus, Ohio, instead of running it right up the middle on Michigan for absolutely like 1 or 2 yards every single snap. But, yeah, that's where we're at right now. We're just kind of sitting and waiting. And I'll be honest, man, like your guess is as good as mine as to when this hire is going to be made official. I would still guess, and I would be surprised that come Wednesday morning, early signing period, if we don't know who the offensive coordinator is, I still think today I'd be very surprised. There's a chance that it happens tonight, certainly I think tomorrow. But if we get to Wednesday without knowing who the hire is, I guess that's probably going to signify to me that it's not Ben Arbuckle. But I would still, man, I would think that with 3 candidates you feel have the best chance of getting it, I got to think by Wednesday they wrap this thing up.
I think so too, Tyler. But at this rate, I don't know if any of us know anything. As much as I hate saying that, as much as I feel like I do have a good pulse on this thing, and the Sooners in Utah are just kind of waiting on a decision from Ben Arbuckle, there's a part of me that wonders, man, does anybody really have a firm handle on what is happening right now? Monday at 2:18 p.m., a day after we all expected, okay, if there's not an official announcement, we're going to know who Oklahoma's offensive coordinator is because it doesn't make sense not to announce that as quickly as possible after the season ends. This is wild. This is completely wild.
Yeah.
And a verified source on the text line who is verified and is a source and is a regular texter and a good one brought up something very interesting. And he said, people might not like to hear it, but Utah just might offer more long-term stability than OU does. Take the glasses off for a minute and realize why that's true. And that's something that hasn't been brought up as a factor in quite a while in this whole conversation, Tyler. But long-term stability, like let's go back to the Dan Mullen conversation. When Dan Mullen was on the radar for Oklahoma as a possible OC hire, he's not a guy that needs long-term stability. Heck,
sure,
he's not an even guy that might want long-term stability. He can work at OU for a year, and if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. He can retire.
He's here for a good time, not a long time.
Well, exactly.
Dan Mullen mantra.
Tyler, Ben Arbuckle is 29 years old. Long-term stability to a guy that is just really cutting his teeth in the Power Four and has a wife and has a young son and has a lot of tread left on the tires, a lot of years ahead of him in his coaching career. He may be a guy that is more easily swayed by the promise of long-term stability than somebody like Dan Mullen, who's in the twilight of his coaching career anyway and can afford, in more ways than one, to have a one-year fling with Oklahoma.
Well, and I don't know how much this matters, too. I'm sure maybe Utah has had a pitch for this as well, but they've kind of, in a lot of ways, they've secured their future. And what I mean by that is, is Kyle Whittingham on the hot seat next year? Well, I don't know if he's necessarily on the hot seat. They didn't have a great year this year. They were beat up a lot like Oklahoma was. But they've already named who the head coach of the future is going to be whenever that time ends for Kyle Whittingham, right? So there's a little bit of certainty of what life after Kyle Whittingham's going to look like. And look, Ben Arbuckle or whoever else takes this job, you're going to enter into a situation where the head coach is on one of the hottest seats in all of college football next year. And I still think that the OUOC job is a very good job that can pay well, and we've seen what OU offensive coordinators have done in the past in terms of going on and being head coaches. In no way am I saying it's not a great job. I think that it is. But you do have to acknowledge, Parker, I think a little bit that there is some risk involved with OU's current situation, with Brent's current situation, if you were to take this gig this offseason. So I don't know if that matters or not to Ben Arbuckle, but that's at least kind of, what the feeling is that he'll be on one of the hottest seats in the SEC next year. Frisco Sooner says, if not by Wednesday, does it almost have to be a coordinator from a team playing in a championship game?
Yeah, that's the only thing that makes sense.
Which would be Joe Craddock, right?
Which would probably be Joe Craddock. Like, if we get to that point in the week and there's no announcement yet, and if nothing has happened to move the needle away from Ben Arbuckle and toward a guy like Joe Craddock, that would do it.
Now, look, what I want to know who the offensive coordinator is today, right now. Yes, I do. Selfishly, I want to know. The most important thing here is just get the hire rights. All right, if it happens tomorrow versus today, or if it even happens Wednesday versus today, they've had a lot of time. This isn't something that they've only had 48 hours to think about. But get the hire right. Make sure you vetted all the candidates, interviewed all the candidates, gathered all the information you need. Make sure you get this hire right. Because, Parker, man, this is not just big for Brent. I mean, it is big for Brent Venables' tenure at Oklahoma, but it just feels like it's big for the OU football program in general. Because if this hire goes bad, then that means Brent Venables, you're going to be kind of resetting in a lot of ways, making a head coaching change a year from now. I don't think that a bad season next year puts the program behind 10 to 15 years, but yes, Brent Venables needs a good year. Dude, OU needs a much better year in year 2 of the SEC. Much better.
Spartan Sooner says, OU's candidate is in the playoffs right now. Lauren Montgomery has one more game left.
Hey, yeah, that's right. Playing Owasso in the state championship, right?
We've gotten a lot of this text. This 405 listener says, why wouldn't Brent consider Kevin Wilson for OC? There is certainly familiarity there. The Kevin Wilson of today is not the Kevin Wilson of 15 years ago in many ways, and that's why. That is why Kevin Wilson is not in the picture.
Yeah. Yes, correct. Okay, Eric the Red says, just curious who the head coach in waiting is for Utah. Also, Whittingham, unsure about returning on his terms, if I remember right. Their defensive coordinator right now. And I think he's been a long time DC with Whittingham, correct?
Morgan Scalley, yes. He played at Utah. He's been at Utah a while. He's going to be their next head coach.
He's a Utah guy.
Another good text from a verified source. At this point, hire the coach saver. Jake Spavital. He saved Justin Wilcox at Cal, and he saved Dave Aranda at Baylor.
Here's a big strike against Ben Arbuckle. I have not thought about it this way. I don't know if I agree with it, but it doesn't make me feel good. Here's the worst thing I've heard someone say about Ben Arbuckle. From the 918, I don't like Ben Arbuckle's face. He reminds me of Tom Herman.
I know. I saw that text, and I was like, oh, no.
Do you think that's what OU's evaluating right now, if he looks too much like Tom Herman to make a decision?
Is the Herman quotient too high? Can we move forward with this?
405, I thought a line was all the way down to the Gulf of Mexico for this job. Britt did say that last week. Line all the way down. Maybe there's just so many candidates right now, they're just trying to interview everyone. They're only in Shreveport right now. They got to make their way all the way down to the Gulf.
This is a great text from Evan and Blanchard. In 10 years, when we're looking for an OC, people are going to be like, well, how about Joe John? There's familiarity there.
Yeah.
Man, you know what's fascinating, though, is that 5 years ago, if Oklahoma had been on the verge or like even remotely interested in hiring Joe Craddock as offensive coordinator, it would have been the dumbest hire imaginable to the outside world, because Joe Craddock had just finished up a 10 years OC at Arkansas under Chad Morris, where the Razorbacks didn't win a conference game in 2 full seasons there. And so my point there is that coaches can rehabilitate their reputations. Joe Craddock has certainly done it. And so, while we may be joking about Joe John right now as a possibility for OU's offensive coordinator somewhere down the line, there's also the chance that 5 years from now or 10 years from now or whatever, Joe John's calling plays at a very high level.
Yeah. Is Tattoo Baker is he trying to troll us today? I thought we were friends, Tattoo Baker. Trying to troll us there and say OU football just made an announcement and to who it is. That is an unverified. That's not true, Tattoo Baker. At least via my social media there. Yeah, he's trying to throw us off here today on a Monday. Come on, Tattoo Baker. All right, I am at Caven's Group today on a Monday spot for me. Remember, you don't need Caven's until you need Caven's. But when you need Caven's, boy, do you need Caven's. 405-573-3048. Put it in your phone for when an emergency situation happens. 405-573-3048 and cavensgroup.com. All right, we do have a decommit to talk about, a very potential decommit soon to come, and what's going on with this 2025 class along with Michael Fasusi. We'll hit that and more of your text as well right here on The Ref. Orange Down Apple Pie Liquor is not your grandma's apple pie unless your grandma was a moonshiner with a PhD in flavor. This all-natural, 6-time distilled spirit is sure to light up any party, tailgate, or special occasion. Whether toasting a touchdown or yelling at the yums because Spike was safe, Horns Down Apple Pie is the perfect drink for celebrating the highs and lows of life in Oklahoma. Horns Down celebrates all of you who cheer from the berm, tailgate, on Lindsay Streak, and wreak havoc on social media. You can find our red bottle at your local liquor store or search for your closest location at drinkhornsdown.com.
So whether you're preparing for retirement or in need of auto, home, life, or business insurance, get the kind of help you'd expect from a good neighbor. Visit the Julia Chu Agency or call 329-3311. Come visit at our new location, 701 Wall Street, Norman.
Landmark Fine Homes is a custom home builder in Oklahoma City. Our commitment is to build energy-efficient, custom-quality crafted homes around the metro OKC area. If you are looking to build your first home or last, Landmark Fine Homes is the builder for you. We have many floor plans to choose from, or bring us one that you already have. We have communities throughout the metro, or we will build on your lot. Call 405-347-5991 and let Landmark Fine Homes help turn your dreams into a reality.
Whether you're celebrating a special occasion, desire a great postgame, or after-work dining experience, the Ranch Steakhouse is the winning choice. At Ranch Steakhouse, we're grilling up the best USDA prime steaks in Oklahoma. Juicy, flavorful, and cooked to perfection. Pair that with an unbeatable atmosphere, a killer drink selection, and a wine list of over 400 personally curated bottles. Whether you're toasting the game or winding down after a big day, Ranch Steakhouse is where champions eat.
In the age of internet and all things fast-moving, it's hard to find people you can trust. When it comes to your home or business electrical systems, don't settle for anything but the best. Wade Electric has been serving Oklahoma since 1969 and will gladly address your electrical needs with diligence and professionalism. They specialize in service upgrades, exterior and accent lighting, power automation and controls, shop and outbuilding wiring, LED conversions, and more. Go with a name you can trust and call Wade Electric today at 405-329-1940.
Every moment counts if you're at risk or living with lung cancer. And anyone with lungs can get lung cancer. It causes more cancer deaths than breast, colon, and prostate combined. And while there may be moments where you question your next step, through it all, Go-To for Lung Cancer is here for you. We are your community. For screening, treatment, and survivorship support, Go-To is your go-to. Confronting lung cancer starts here. Visit goto.org.
I'm Gina Mitchell of Mitchell's Jewelry. Whether you're looking for the perfect gift to dazzle your loved ones or choosing a present for yourself, you can rely on the elves at Mitchell's Jewelry. We have a tremendous selection of wish list favorites like Vahan bracelets, diamond stud earrings, diamond station necklaces, and the newest watch offerings from Michelle and Shinola. Don't make Santa wonder what you want. Let's get your wish list ready. You can make it on our website or come on in the store. Mitchell's Jewelry in the heart of Norman at 2201 West Main Street.
My dad, he's a double amputee, and he's one of my favorite people in the world. To me, a hero is someone who fights for our country and freedom.
My dad is a hero.
Homes for Our Troops built this house, and my dad can get through the wide doorways.
He can reach anything.
Homes for Our Troops builds and donates specially adapted custom homes nationwide for severely injured post-9/11 veterans and enables them to rebuild their lives. Join our mission at hfotusa.org.
Medicaid and CHIP offer free or low-cost health coverage for children and teens. Hospital and doctor visits, prescriptions, shots, and more are covered. That's peace of mind for parents if a child is sick or gets injured. And parents may now be eligible for Medicaid too, even if they've applied in the past. Enrollment is always open. Visit insurekidsnow.gov or call 1-877-KIDS-NOW. Paid for by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
Locked in with McComas Bethune, live on the Ref. Tyler McComas, Parker Bethune, Ref Army listening worldwide via the free KREF app. Just search KREF in the App Store. Bay City, Michigan is tuned in today. Overland Park, Kansas, Malvern, Arkansas, Cincinnati, Ohio, Palm Springs, California, Shreveport, Louisiana, Jasper, Georgia, East Orange, New Jersey, Guyman, Oklahoma, all tuned in via the free KREF app. Again, just search KREF to listen in the App Store to listen to the Ref wherever you're at on the go. And our Ref Army Locator is brought to you by Hornsdown Apple Pie. Hornsdown Apple Pie did mix very nicely with all the gumbo that I had on Saturday. Awesome stuff. Dink and Addison, great guys as well. Go support them. They support us. DrinkHornsdown.com to see all the locations throughout the state of Oklahoma that you can find Hornsdown Apple Pie. That's DrinkHornsdown.com. All right, news broke last night. 4-star wide receiver Marcus Harris decommits from OU. He had been committed since the middle of June. Well, it kind of sounded, I heard you talking with Steely earlier, is maybe this was a surprise to a lot of people, not sure. But maybe this was an OU decision more than anything, and they're looking for immediate portal help at wide receiver.
Yeah, and Marcus Harris, that was quite an abrupt end to his recruitment when he scheduled the official visit to Oklahoma on a whim, got to campus, committed, and it was over in the span of 5 days. 5 days before, Marcus Harris was not a name hardly known to OU fans, not somebody that was seriously in the picture, and then 5 days later he's committed to the Sooners. So that was wild over the summer. Credit to Emmett Jones for being able to secure the bag there. But it was an OU decision, Tyler. And it was a decision rooted in the reality that, you look at the wide receiver class as it's currently composed. Right now, this second, even though it's not going to stay this way, Oklahoma has 4 receivers committed. Elijah Thomas, Emmanuel Choice, Cortez Mills, and Grayson Harris. Tyler, who have I long said are the 2 guys that have the highest ceiling and may offer the highest immediate potential as contributors?
Manny Choice was definitely one.
And?
Your boy from Shakota as well.
Bingo. So
see, I listen.
There you go. Yeah. So that's my feeling. That I assume is OU's feeling as well, because when you make the decision to part ways with Marcus Harris, and I don't think Grayson Harris remains in this class either. As we've discussed with Cortez Mills, Nebraska has made a substantial monetary offer to him. And so with that in mind, it looks as though there's a world, and a likelihood, in fact, in which Oklahoma goes into signing day on Wednesday with only 2 wide receiver signees in Elijah Thomas and Manny Choice. Now, less than ideal from a numbers standpoint? Sure, maybe. You can certainly make the argument that having only 2 guys is a detriment moving forward. You're entitled to your opinion, but my point is, if it was going to be 2 guys in this receiver class, those were the 2 guys. Those were the 2 guys that you had to hang on to, and Oklahoma has, and they will.
Marcus Harris is the one that's official that he's decommitted. I mean, Cortez Mills isn't official, but I think we all believe that's going to happen, and he's going to flip to Nebraska. That was it's probably been apparent for a while, certainly on Saturday, but then now there's a lot of crystal ball predictions for Cortez Mills to end up at Nebraska. A lot of you are asking, could OU get in on former 5-star wide receiver Micah Hudson, who was a freshman at Texas Tech this year? Man, UT's, I'm sure, going to be heavily involved in that. Texas A&M, LSU, Tennessee, and Colorado were the first 5 schools that were listed next to possibilities for Micah Hudson. And, hey, here we're in the day and age, Parker, where, finishing second in a recruitment isn't all that bad anymore if a kid elects to enter the transfer portal. I'm sure Micah Hudson is going to be looking to make some money the second time around, just like he did the first time around. So if Texas is interested here, I'm sure that they'd have more than a decent chance at landing the former 5-star.
Yeah, I mean, until further notice, I am under the impression that Micah Hudson will be a Texas Longhorn, because the only thing that kept him off the 40 acres in the first place was double eagle energy.
Yeah. Okay, Michael Fasusi took the A&M visit this weekend. Didn't see a whole lot of great plays for the Aggies. Did see the Aggies get shut down at the goal line, especially there in the end of the game. It seems to be quiet right now with Michael Fasusi coming out of this visit. Maybe that's a good thing, but we're 2 days away until the early signing period. Do we still feel as confident about Michael Fasusi on Monday as we did going into this visit last Friday?
Confident is probably not a word that should be used at this point. There is a good chance that Michael Fasusi signs with Oklahoma on Wednesday. But is it a certainty? At this point, absolutely not. He's visited Texas. He's visited Texas A&M. And that reality alone ought to tell you that he is not 100% confident in his decision to pick Oklahoma, or that the circumstances when he enrolls at Oklahoma will be the same circumstances that he anticipated when he committed to Oklahoma. So this is going to be one of those, Tyler, where you feel good, you feel okay going into signing day, but can't take anything for granted with the kid until pen hits paper, kind of like Peyton Bowen a couple years back.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a little stressful heading towards the finish line. That's for sure. I think that we've thought that for a while now, but now that the week is upon us here, probably definitely going to be the case. Definitely going to be the case. KW the 918 says people will be in their feelings if Fasusi flips last minute, which is why this recruiting policy hurts more than helps. Meanwhile, OU's doing the same thing to Harris, who wants to be a Sooner. I guess that all-in thing is a one-way street. Such an incredibly bad look for OU.
It doesn't reflect well on the program, and I will say that. And I truly don't like it. It's easy for me to say that as somebody that doesn't have skin in the game, as somebody that doesn't have an iron in the fire, if you will, of what's going on in that building at the Switzer Center. I've used the term act of self-preservation because that's really what it is, and that's how you make sense of it from the OU side. These coaches are doing what they can to win in 2025 with regard to roster construction, because there is no 2026 and beyond if you don't win in 2025. So you have to win next year at all costs, and I understand that. Even so, it does go against the grain of everything that you've said and done for 3 years in the recruiting game with these kids and their families. Hey, you commit here, we're committed to you. Commitment's a two-way street. We're locked in. Let's do this. You're not going to take any other visits, and we're going to preserve a spot in the class for you. Well, now you're turning around, and 3 days to ESD here in December 2024, you're telling kids, one of whom has been committed for a long, long, long time, hey, you got to go find somewhere else because we don't have room for you anymore. Yeah. I just don't love it. And again, I'm not saying it's the wrong way to go about things because it's not my salary and my job. And I have nothing on the line next year with regard to whether or not OU football wins games. This staff does, these coaches do, but I don't love how this is being handled.
And I don't know if they would have – I don't think they would have done that last offseason or the offseason before that. That's just a guess by me, but maybe this is, hey, we got a year next year. We got to figure this out. We got to be a lot better. And maybe they wouldn't have operated that in off seasons in the past since they got here, but – maybe they're feeling the heat a little bit here and know that they've got to get a lot better at that position in a hurry. And maybe that's a huge reason why this decision ended up happening. I don't know. Gunny says, will OU be in the running for Miller Moss?
No.
I wouldn't think so. It would be hilarious if OU did get Miller Moss and they won 10 games next year and he was like all SEC. But teams for Miller Moss that I saw today, Mizzou could be in the market for Miller Moss. Michigan could potentially be in the market for Miller Moss. Louisville, 3 of the teams that I saw there for Miller Moss, who got replaced this year at USC.
Yeah, you kind of have to look for those second-tier college football programs that won't be able to afford one of the elite QB transfers, but maybe like you take a gander on a guy with some experience and maybe he gives you a better-than-expected campaign and helps elevate you to CFP contention. That may be the case with Miller and Moss, but there's absolutely no reason for Oklahoma to go after Miller Moss, and there's absolutely no reason for Miller Moss to want to come to Oklahoma because he's got 1 year of eligibility left. And would Miller Moss be a for sure starter over Michael Hawkins?
Not for sure, no.
Exactly.
Far from it, actually.
Why would a kid like that go somewhere where he doesn't know for a fact that he's going to be the starter next season?
Yeah, like, do I think Miller Moss is going to play at OU next year? No. Do I think that there's a chance that OU plays against Miller Moss next year? Yeah, I think that could absolutely be the case. Again, Missouri and Michigan, a couple of teams that were mentioned that maybe could be buyers for him. So maybe we'll see Miller Moss next season in Norman. Lincoln Cure looks like he might flip to Oregon, which would be not great for Kansas State. Be great for Oregon. Boy. Luther Burden is heading to the NFL draft. I don't think that's all that surprising whatsoever. Probably going to be a first-round pick next year in the draft. And then Jamarian Ficklin, speaking of Utah, flips from Texas State to Utah. So OU never really reacted here. Maybe they didn't want to offer a quarterback when they didn't know for sure who the OC is going to be. Not sure, but I would venture to guess that Jamarian Ficklin, that whole thing has sailed away, and he'll be with the Utah Utes next year.
I would imagine so as well, and I was told this morning the plan is for him to sign on Wednesday. So looks like the kid is going to be headed to Utah at this rate. A 918 listener says, do you think Hawkins returns? Yes, I do. A 405 listener says, if Hawkins is a QB next year, it'll be BV's last.
I don't know, man. Who's starting quarterback for who they open with? Illinois State, I want to say. I think that there's a lot of odds, right? There's a lot of players that would have odds on that next year. Do I think that there's a chance that Michael Hawkins is your starting quarterback next year? Yeah, I think that there's a chance. My guess is that Jackson Arnold is probably not back next year. But I absolutely think that there's definitely a chance that your starting quarterback for 2025 is not currently on this roster.
Jake from Wisconsin on the text line says, the question to ask Ben Arbuckle is Utah the home of the Turnpike Troubadours? 1 point to OU.
Yeah. Sean says, is Bauer Sharp declaring for the CFL draft? He'd be a great Hamilton Tiger Cats. Boy, that I've lived through this entire regular season. It's taken years off of my life. There's been a couple of really good moments there, but there's been a lot of bad moments as well, and Bauer Sharp has kind of been at the center of some of those. But that interception he threw on Saturday, that's the worst play of the year. I mean, I don't know any other way to say it. He can't throw that. You can't put him in that situation. Why do they continue to put him in those situations? Why? It's so mind-boggling, dude.
I don't know.
How many times, Parker, this year have they put Bauer Sharp in a situation like that and it's actually worked out?
That hasn't
compared
happened.
to the amount of times that they've tried one. I don't it's amazing.
I don't know why they keep going back to the well, trying to make Bauer Sharp into a Swiss Army knife. He's not Tavon Austin. He's not Cordell Stewart. Just let him be what he is, which is a tight end. Throw him the football. Let him block. Those should be the only two things he is asked to do.
I mean, if you want to run a trick play in that spot, I mean, fine. Go ahead, I guess. But to put him, again, in that situation after just time and time and time again, it's failed miserably. It's mind-boggling, truly. I don't really know what else to say other than that. And it was a terrible, terrible moment on Saturday there in Death Valley. All right, one final segment of Locked In is coming up next. We'll get to as many texts as we can, hit more recruiting, more OC talk. We'll do it all right here on The Ref. We're the home of Sooner fans. Orange Down Apple Pie Liquor is not your grandma's apple pie unless your grandma was a moonshiner with a PhD in flavor. This all-natural, 6-time distilled spirit is sure to light up any party, tailgate, or special occasion. Whether toasting a touchdown or yelling at the Yums because Spike was safe, Horns Down Apple Pie is the perfect drink for celebrating the highs and lows of life in Oklahoma. Horns Down celebrates all of you who cheer from the berm, tailgate, on Lindsay Street, and wreak havoc on social media. You can find our red bottle at your local liquor store or search for your closest location at drinkhornsdown.com.
December.
Play with your wild card to win your share of $80,000.
Wrap up your year with a win at Riverwind.
A happy place comes in many colors. One that leaves you feeling refreshed. Something that gets you all fired up. Or gives you the space to chill. Whatever your color, bring happiness home with CertaPro Painters and make your happy place your home. CertaPro Painters, that's painting happy. Get started today at CertaPro.com. Each CertaPro Painters business is independently owned and operated. Contractor license and registration information is available at CertaPro.com.
Ever wonder why someone would go to the ends of the earth and leap into the unknown? Maybe a better question is, what are you waiting for? Pacifico is brewed for those who follow their own path. That's living life anchors up.
Are you looking for that gift for the biggest OU or golf fan in your life? The Pro Shop at Jimmy Austin OU Golf Club is your place to go this holiday season. With brands such as Lululemon, Red and West, Travis Matthews, Peter Millar, Johnny O, and so much more. Maybe you need a hat or a belt or a polo or a sweatshirt. You can find it all at the Jimmy Austin OU Golf Club. And it's not just for men. They have apparel for youth and women. So when you want the best OU apparel you can't find anywhere else, the place to go is the Jimmy Austin OU Golf Club.
This is Peggy Doviak, and I opened DM Wealth Management because of a horrible experience that my mother had with a stockbroker. I wanted to give people an alternative, a place they could go to understand their money, to know why investment decisions were made the way they were, and to create a financial plan that would help them meet their goals. Most of all, I wanted to help them plan their prosperity. Call me at 405-329-8884 or dmwealth.com.
Get your ugliest holiday sweater out of the closet, put together a team, or register as an individual and make your way to Legacy Park on December 14th, 9 a.m. for the Norman and Parks Rec annual Ugly Christmas Sweater 5K run. Pay $30 for a shirt and medal and have your race timed or run untimed for free. Prices increase on December 1st, so sign up early. Go to Norman Parks and Rec on Facebook for more information.
Hi, I'm Ashton and I'm with the nonprofit Fostering Futures. Every day, children are removed from their homes due to abuse and neglect. In these critical moments, we step in to support these vulnerable kids. We work alongside child welfare workers to meet the essential needs of safety, stability, and healthy connections, as well as providing enrichment opportunities. But we can't do this important work without your support. Consider donating at fosteringfuturesok.org. Together, we can offer children a brighter future.
Every day, we rise, challenging ourselves to work for what we believe in. At U.S. Border Patrol, protecting our borders is more than a job, it's a calling. Agents answer the call, working together to keep our country and communities safe. If you're ready for a new mission, join U.S. Border Patrol and go beyond. Learn more at cbp.gov/careers/Border Patrol.
Dorsey Jones Buick GMC in El Reno, bringing to this hour of Locked In with McComas and Thune. Dorsey Jones Buick GMC, great selection, great pricing. Go check them out in El Reno. Dorsey Jones Buick GMC. Current recruiting rankings after the decommitment of four-star wide receiver Marcus Harris last night, as the early signing day coming up on Wednesday. OU out of the top 10 now, all the way down to number 14. Ohio State at 1, Georgia at 2, Bama at 3, Auburn at 4, Texas at 5, LSU at 6, Miami at 7, Michigan at 8, Oregon at 9, Tennessee at 10, Notre Dame at 11, A&M at 12, Florida at 13, Oklahoma at 14. Then there's Ole Miss sitting there at number 15. And, hey, this can still be a good class. This can still be a very good class. But one thing that's true now, has always been the case. They lost Marcus Harris. Sounds like that was an OU decision. Feels like that they're going to lose Cortez Mills as well, so maybe you only have 2 wide receivers that end up on signing day, but you have got to keep Michael Fasusi. That is the pin that keeps everything together. That's the pin that keeps all the positivity with this class or optimism with this class. You have got to keep Michael Fasusi committed, and you've got to get him on Wednesday. That is your path to us sitting here on Wednesday saying, like, okay, they had some decommitments down the stretch. Maybe OU had a big part in a lot of those decisions, but at least you kept your highest-rated player in the class and one of the better offensive linemen that 2025 had to offer. Yeah, super critical.
That's a non-negotiable. Michael Fasusi has to sign with Oklahoma because it's catastrophic if he doesn't. Not because he makes that much of a difference for OU's outlook in 2025, but just because it is going to tank the public perception of your program if your crown jewel bails right before or on signing day, especially in favor of a Texas or a Texas A&M. It's just not going to be a good look for Oklahoma. It's going to play right into the hands of opponents as a negative recruiting tactic. And ultimately, the other angle to it is it's going to tank Oklahoma's recruiting ranking in the 2025 cycle. Right now, they're sitting outside the top 10 after the loss of Marcus Harris yesterday. You lose Michael Fasusi, you've probably fallen out of the top 20.
Yep. Jacquez Petaway, that broke yesterday that he's going to enter in the transfer portal. Hadn't thought a lot about him. I guess at times it was kind of mysterious as to where is he at? Why is he not playing more? It's kind of interesting that, not that he wasn't given more of a chance, but why he wasn't, playing at a level where, seeing as where OU was at wide receiver, that he wasn't getting a lot more reps and a lot more opportunities. So just based on how this year has gone for him, I can't say that I was super shocked to see this yesterday. I do remember going into his freshman year, Levy was saying, you guys are going to like Jacquez. And that kind of started the hype for him.
Yep.
And he was a highly recruited player coming out of high school. Just never worked out for him here, and wasn't surprised at all to see his name about to enter the portal here soon.
You know what's crazy is if you'll recall, Tyler, he had, what was it? Did he have 9 catches in his very first collegiate? I think that's what it was. 9 catches in his very first collegiate game. The rest of his career at Oklahoma, 7 total catches. 7 catches.
Pretty telling, man. Just never really broke through and got involved in things, and he had more than a great opportunity this year to be one of those guys. Just didn't happen. He had 9 catches for 56 yards against Arkansas State. 9 catches. The long was for 13. that day against Arkansas State. So he had more catches that day than he did combine the rest of his OU career.
Yep, and he led the team in catches that day. Obviously, they all came in the second half, and the game was well in hand at that point. But everybody was kind of thinking, with regard to Jacquez Petaway, okay, like this is a dude. This is somebody that's going to play. It's going to make an impact for Oklahoma right off the bat as a true freshman. Like he played his way into the rotation with a performance like this, even against Arkansas State, and it never happened, man. It never became any less befuddling because you go back to the Tennessee game earlier this year, catches 3 passes for 79 yards, including a 46-yarder from Michael Hawkins. You're thinking, all right, here comes the Petaway show. Tyler, he hasn't played a snap for Oklahoma, and he's been healthy and active for every single game.
No.
He has not played a snap for Oklahoma since the Texas game.
Crazy, man. Crazy. Corey Mack says if you can't stand out when the 5 guys in front of you are hurt, then you do need to go.
Yeah,
and then do is in all caps right there.
Again, I can't put a finger on what happened with Jacquez Petaway, but there's a reason the staff wasn't playing him. I'm not sure exactly what that reason is. I'm not sure what was going on behind closed doors. Not sure if he was just that bad on the practice field, but when you're not playing and the situation is that dire at wide receiver, especially as a former top 100 prospect in the country, yeah, you're probably not sticking around at season's end.
First-time texter from the 405. Welcome to the show. How come our OC hasn't been announced or hired yet? We're not a serious program anymore? Hey, and I'm kind of right there in this group, too. It's like, all right, come on. Who's it going to be? Let's go. I'm very, very impatient when it comes to this OC hire. They just need to hire someone, get out in front of it a little bit, kind of, offer some positivity, offer some hope for some next year. They need an OC hire. They need a big OC hire in a bad way. And it feels like the 3 names that are most likely as of right now, Ben Arbuckle, Joe Craddock, and then Buster Faulkner, in case you just now tuned in. And Buster Faulkner had, pretty nice night on Friday night against Georgia. I was out there in Baton Rouge really rooting on the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets, came up short. 43 years old. He was a quarterback at Valdosta State, A&M Commerce. He was the Arkansas State OC in 2016, Southern Miss OC in 2019, Georgia's quarterback coach from 2020 to 2022, and now the Georgia Tech offensive coordinator / tight ends coach since 2023. So sounds like he's in the mix, but is Buster Faulkner a clear third in the top 3, or does he have a real chance here if it doesn't work out with Ben Arbuckle?
It's a great question, Tyler. Buster Faulkner's name is one that I hadn't incredibly heard until just a few days ago. At this point right now, I would put him a distant third in regard to the likelihood that they're Oklahoma's next OC. Let's play gut check here. Who does your gut tell you is the ultimate hire?
Well, I think my opinion might differ from the actual situation. My guess is that OU Ben Arbuckle is priority number 1 or target number 1. That's what my gut tells me.
So he's going to be the guy, is what you're saying. You think?
Well,
you think that's
I
who
don't
the hire
know.
is?
I mean, I think that's who. I think this Utah situation is real. If you want me to look at it that way, then I'll still guess that he's the hire. Yeah. I don't know, super great about that, but
yeah, my gut says Arbuckle as well. I think he's still the guy. Until or unless he's announced as the next offensive coordinator at Utah, I'm rolling with Arbuckle to OU. If things go awry with Arbuckle, I believe the next guy in line would be Joe Craddock, followed by Buster Faulkner. That's how I see this thing going down.
Well, wasn't Joe Craddock rumored for the that Florida State offensive coordinator gig? I mean, clearly he's not getting it now because that spot has been filled. I have seen John Summerall's name listed quite a bit for that North Carolina job that's open. I have no idea if Tulane would elevate him or not as the head coach. Tulane job's a pretty good job right now if John Summerall leaves, but I just don't think that you're going to be able to necessarily wait around for 5 or 6 days and just hope that Joe Craddock still. I think someone else could come calling for Joe Craddock. If OU doesn't move quick on this.
Jay, in Ellick says, amazing to think that as a program we have sunk to the depths of being slow played for an offensive coordinator position and having Utah used as leverage against us.
I mean, they're a nice program. They've been a good, solid program. I went to a couple of Rose Bowls here recently, but I still think when, you think that someone is really thinking between Oklahoma and Utah, it doesn't feel great. What's going to be the reaction if it's reported that this guy Arbuckle picks Utah over Oklahoma?
Oh man, I don't want to know. I mean, I think it'll all be pretty moot once OU's guy is eventually announced. But if Arbuckle were to pick Utah, it would not be a fun few hours on these airwaves or on the Twitter app if Utah beat out Oklahoma for the guy that has long been at the top of the list, really ever since it became apparent things weren't going anywhere with Dan Mullen. Ben Arbuckle has been OU's top guy. And so if for whatever reason it didn't work out, yeah, people would be upset, and rightfully so.
But it's been bad to be I think it's eventually going to be good for these guys because one of them is going to get the job and, one of them is certainly going to get a pay raise from where they're currently at. But, just when we kind of, really start to focus on an offensive coordinator and watch their games, have you noticed how those offensive coordinators' games don't go all that well? Like Ben Arbuckle got beat by Wyoming. What they score? 14 points on Saturday.
This was hilarious. Brian Clinton, my coworker, brought this up to me yesterday. From the time that Ben Arbuckle's name was credibly linked to the offensive coordinator vacancy at the University of Oklahoma, Washington State went 0-3.
Yeah, Tulane lost on Thursday night to Memphis. Buster Faulkner lost to Georgia, but that was actually a pretty good effort by his offense.
Yeah, Georgia Tech got screwed by the officials in that game, too. Now, that said, they did have a zillion chances to win it in overtime and didn't pull it off.
Tommy says if he wants to be here, he will, much like any recruits. Scott T says, does the Ficklin commits have any impact on Arbuckle going to Utah? I wouldn't think so. The Ficklin commit have any impact on Arbuckle going to Utah? I wouldn't think that there's all that much familiarity between the two at this point.
Jamarian Ficklin was flipping to Utah if Oklahoma didn't get involved. Let's not get that twisted. The timing is interesting, certainly. I don't think, based on the conversations I've had via text while we've been on the air since he committed to Utah, I don't think that has anything to do with the potential of an OC hire at Utah, whether it be Ben Arbuckle or anybody else. It was a case where, he took an official visit out to Utah last weekend, loved his time. Obviously, it's a superior situation to Texas State by a long shot. And if Oklahoma wasn't going to beat down the door and say, all right, we want you, then he was going to go where he was wanted and does have the opportunity to play P4 ball. And that right now is Utah. That's the only P4 offer he's got.
Mark in the Lou says, maybe there's a new head coach announcement.
Oh, boy.
I don't think so. I think Brent will be back next year. Jim in Arlington says, who is the dark horse in the OC search of all three names? Thank you for texting that in, Jim, because we've had so long to talk about this OC hire that we brought up, like, okay, well, here's who we feel like is in the best situation to get this job, but there could definitely be a dark horse, a name that we're not talking about. Who's the dark horse? Who's the candidate that we're not talking about? Well, that answer clearly was Buster Faulkner, because we weren't talking about him until recently. He ended up being the dark horse that has entered into the conversation. He may end up getting the job. I guess we'll see. But we've been talking about Joe Craddock and Ben Arbuckle for a while, but we're just now talking about Buster Faulkner. I remember laughing at his name like a week ago when we first started talking about this thing.
Yeah. And again, I still don't think this process gets beyond Arbuckle. It's tough to imagine that Utah will wind up out-muscling Oklahoma for their top OC target. But, shoot, if that were to happen, then, man, it's anybody's guess at that point. But if you're asking me, I'm still saying Arbuckle is the guy at Oklahoma.
918 Arbuckle on the surface is a very underwhelming hire if it happens. Chris Tate says Faulkner would be a terrible hire. Georgia Tech is ranked 69th in the country. averaging 26 points per game. It's not like the ACC plays outstanding defense in that league. We can do much better. So not a lot of love right now for any of the three candidates that we've mentioned. Maybe more so for Joe Craddock than any other, but not like there's a whole lot of ringing endorsements out there from the fan base on Ben Arbuckle or Buster Faulkner for that case as well. But we'll talk about it for the next 3 hours. The Rush is coming up next. I am at Cavens Group here in Norman. CavensGroup.com, 405-573-34.